Hey Shepherd. Hey, how are you, Solomon? Memento, ciao, ciao Pasquale, ciao Francesco, ciao Francesca, ciao Vittorio, ciao Siero, ciao Nobi, come state ragazzi? Tutto bene? Ciao Ale. Hey mate, how are you? All good? Are you here in LA? Ciao 32 bits. Ciao Vincenzo, come stai? Looking at your feed. Hope you're well. Ciao Marco Gram. Ciao Gian Lorenzo. Ciao Gionnin, come stai? Ciao Giovanni. Ciao Simone. Tutto bene? Che succede oggi? Nel mio mondo, my world, there's nothing new except for the magical Jay Pensado coming in.
Uh,
Wow, look at,
yeah,
where are you?
I don't know,
I
but I
mean, it
can't see
looks
my
like Fab
hand.
Factory, but you can't be at Fab Factory.
Well, trying to be.
Wow.
uh, man,
Did you
uh,
what did you do? Oh, the big TV in the back.
yeah, yeah. I gotta set my. Give me a second. I gotta set something up
And
here.
also, you need to give us a new tour because it looks actually super cool. Wow. You basically recreated the same dimensions. No, I mean, I don't know if they're exact dimensions, but
There we go. Is that? Let me see.
it's great. It looks
Oh, there we
great.
go. Down
Wow.
here.
Yeah. Reminds me
Hey,
of
man,
some
it's McKay.
Pensado show. What's the name in the when you're like showing new plugins? It almost reminds me
Oh,
of that
into the
kind of
layer.
shooting
Yeah.
angle.
I mean, I'm with the great Canova. I can't go right. I mean, come on,
But
man.
look at my background. There's
You
nothing.
got
I have to do this. Okay.
you got more gear than Sweetwater.
How are you?
You know what? I'm doing really good. Went through a rough 6 or 7 weeks trying to figure out what the hell it is I'm hearing in this room and hearing in this space. I'm not real good at changing environments. I've been in LA 30 years and I've worked at two studios,
Yeah.
Enterprise and I was at Larrabee for off and on for 22 years. So
Yeah.
I don't like to change, but
Exactly.
I'm getting it now. You can tell in my voice I'm happy because the quality of my life is directly connected to the quality of my work, and which is if anybody's listening, which I'm sure they are. I didn't mean it that way, but don't be that way. It's horrible. It's horrible
Especially if a
because
pandemic comes in.
well, you're lucky, Michaela, because you create, so you have control over your well-being. I'm an I'm a beneficiary and sometimes a victim of what I'm given, and not bragging or anything, but I don't let anything leave my room that's not great, you know, or at least in my mind, it's great. So
So I would love
yeah,
today.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I would love
Huh?
today to do. I would love today to do some kind of like question and answers with specific like instruments and part of the mix that how you treat those things. I would really love
Sure.
because like let's say for example, let's say very specific. So let's say dark synth bass, like let's say minimal or something analog, that comes in your mixing room, and how you typically treat it.
Well, I can do that in 2 seconds. Basically, I'm not a big fan of compressing bass, but I'll probably do some kind of compression. And a lot of synth basses, you hear boom, 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 boom. boom, 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 and so I level all those by hand, clip gain, and then
Wow, that's cool. Wait. Let's wait 1 second. Because I actually saw you doing that on vocals, like literally for a couple
yeah,
of hours. So you
yeah,
just say that,
yeah,
and so basically with Pro Tools we have this function that's called clip gain, where we can basically,
yeah,
alter, the level of each small, let's say, even syllabs, of the vocals, or every
uh-huh.
note of the bass, and you physically, change the level to make it even.
Yeah, and after a while, you get quicker at it. I mean, I'm a little slow, but you get quicker at it. And then I parallel some type of distortion, sometimes an emulation of Tube Screamer by Ibanez, the guitar pedal.
Hmm.
Uh, Waves came out with a new plugin I like a lot called Berserk, and they have a
Yeah.
new plugin. I can't remember the name of it, but I've fallen in love with it. It allows you to load up 3 unique
Yeah,
um,
it's a multi-band
distortions.
modular from Waves, where you can load.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And Destructor, I got that from you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's great.
I still an oldie but a goodie. And then basically it's just like if the song's in C sharp, I'll look up the what frequency C sharp is. There's an app called Music Math, and so like it might say 37.6 hertz, and so I'll type that into an EQ and a little bit of a broad bandwidth, and I'll emphasize that tonic so that the bass can kind of cut through a little better. And usually it's down in the 40, 50, 30 range, and then I might add an octave up. So
Uh,
uh,
so
uh,
let's go a little
but
deeper, Dave. So let's say, because there's no bass if there's no kick. Basically, it's always a relationship.
uh,
Sometimes it's a friendly relationship. Sometimes it's like they're fighting for the space. So what do you do once you got this wonderful, great synth bass, and you treated the synth bass like you said, but you have a kick that's still deep and not really, pointy. So you basically, they're almost competing for the same space. What's your typical, decision making process?
well, I use uh, um, I'm pretty good with frequencies at hearing frequencies, but when I get down below 40, I'm not quite as good as some other people. Like the octave from 10K to 20K is 10,000 uh, hertz, but when you get down in the 30-40 range, like 20 is an octave down from 40, and that spacing is a little hard for me to
Yeah.
learn yet. I practice at it every day, but I look at my little TC analyzer that one of my good friends gave me for Christmas.
Who
Thank you.
knows?
And huh?
Who knows with?
And yeah, yeah. He does have a heart, by the way. He acts tough, but he's got a
Sometimes.
good heart. And uh, and so I'll see which frequencies are competing, soloing the bass, soloing the kick, and then I'll go to C6, and I'll use the two outside bands, and I'll sidechain the bass. So let's say it's 37 cycles. I'll sidechain 37 cycles. So every time the kick hits 37 cycles, it'll take it down in the in the bass. I like that better than just
And
broadband, old
you
school
taught me
dub
that trick.
style.
You taught me that trick, and it was like revealing for me, because up until that time I always used like full band, side chaining, which, it can be great creatively if you're doing something that's really, hard and has to be pumping. But if you just want to fix the problem in that specific frequency, I don't know why I never thought about it, because I'm dumb probably. And you just show me C6 with your preset, with actually, the extreme, two bands. And I'm always working
Yeah.
with, I think I also saved the preset like Dave sidechain or something, so I have it in my heart, in my cold heart. But listen to this. So what do you do on the opposite side of the spectrum of the basses? So when you get a live bass that's, let's say, like Rickenbacker sounding, or even like Hofner sounding, like medium frequencies, very focused into the medium, but it lacks the low end, and it lacks also the continuity of the, the pressure in the low end. What do you do there?
Yeah.
By the way, I love it
Well,
because I'm stealing secrets from you with an excuse
they're
of
not
doing an Instagram live. So it's win-win for me.
they're not secrets. Although I did have to change the locks on my door a couple of months ago, but that's okay. Um, uh, Normally, what I'll do is I'm not a big fan of EQing bass. So
Mhm.
what I'll do is, here again, parallel, parallel, parallel. I'm a big parallel user. So what I'll do is I'll parallel UAD Eden. It's a
Yeah.
EDEN. It's a great, and so I get my color from that, and I get my sub from that, and then I mess with it to where I'm not. I rarely am working in solo at this point. You have to do everything kind of in context with the mix, and then if I've got kind of a if I've got a bass sound that's a little less sine wavy,
Mm-hmm.
because a sine wave has no harmonics, and we need a little bit of harmonics on basses. And so if I have a good bass, I'll parallel UAD B15
Yeah.
bass amp on it, and uh, I have a real one somewhere in the world. I can't remember where I left it, but it's a great emulation. And then sometimes I'll use Destructor. Sometimes I'll use the Tube Screamer. Sometimes I'll use um, Waves has a version of the Proco Rat,
Yeah.
and it was a great guitar pedal. And sometimes I use that. Um, uh, but my thought processes in audio are I don't like subtlety on any level in music, because when I was a kid, we'd get a record, and then we'd get out of school, and all my friends would come over, after school, and we'd sit and we'd listen to an entire two sides of an album before moving, and then mom would bring us little snacks and treats, and we'd spend 2 hours, and we'd wear out an album uh, in probably a week. We just play it over and over and over and
Yeah.
over. But nowadays we have a different world. It's a much better world in my opinion. I wish I had been born 20 years ago. I love where things are going, but we have a short attention span. We've got a lot of more options for when we hear something, we can get it on demand, and how much information we can have access to. So I have to kick you in the ass when my mix comes on. So I try to my whole career in LA, last 25, 30 years, I've tried to uh, Trevor Horn style pick certain elements to kind of wake you up. Like if you ever listen to Owner of a Lonely Heart, which is one of my favorite productions,
Mm-hmm.
dun, 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 dun,
Ta-da.
dun, it's like, well, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
But I like to do that today, because I can picture a young lady putting on her makeup to one of my mixes, and I want to get her attention. Or I can imagine somebody listening in a car, and you alpha wave out and you're off in the clouds somewhere. I want to get you back to my mix.
Yeah.
So don't be subtle. Don't be subtle.
By the
And with
way,
a
by the way,
bass,
sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to tell you something. You know who's teaching us to mix like that nowadays? First of all, yeah, obviously, young engineers, they don't have a clue what they're doing, but sometimes, they have a great heart and great
yeah,
brains,
I
and
love
they
that.
try that.
Love
But
that.
also, listen to these video games. Video games music mixing. It's really not about
Yeah,
subtlety. Not about subtlety. And I was
yeah.
actually noticing that yesterday. I was playing the new Doom. There's this new Doom game called Doom Eternal. So
Hmm.
we all know that the budgets behind all these games, it's incredible. Now we are talking about tens of millions of
Hmm.
dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. So, and spending probably 2 years, a team of hundreds of people. But I was really woke up about, like, they were doing some panning, some hard panning on some music. I'm talking, not like sound effects, you know. And I said, wow, look at this, you know, we should do this in pop music because it's so catching my attention. And I was totally talking, watching something else. I don't even remember, but that really caught my attention. And I said, wow, we should be more, you know, courageous in some way.
Mm-hmm. I agree 100%. Going back to the bass, I just looked at my notes. I'm using the brand new Eventide crush station a lot. It's got a knob. I forget what it is. It's not labeled low end, but there's a knob that really
Great.
has some sweet low end. Yeah. And I like a company called Refuse Low Ender.
Oh wow, I don't know that.
LOWEN. Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a poor man's version of the DBX 120 DS. And then an odd one I like is Red 17. It's an older, I think, AI emulation of something. And the UAD Bax Dangerous Audio is what I use for high passing and low passing on bass. It's really good. I like what happens at the corner, and at the corner, and I like the way it handles that. Bass is well, vocals were the hardest thing for me to get a handle on. I still struggle with vocals sometimes because they're recorded so many different ways with so many different types of equipment, and the minute you think you got something nailed, you don't. even like if you have the verse and the chorus leads separate, you're like, man, I'll try to sing EQ. It doesn't work, you know. So bass is one of those things too. Where, by the way, let me go off topic. While we're talking about bass, the greatest bass player to have ever lived was actually a woman named Carol Kay. Carol Kay was the bass player and guitar player. She's an incredible guitar player too. With the Wrecking Crew. She's probably played on hundreds and hundreds of #1 records, and nobody knows who she is. Look up Carol Kay.
Yeah, I wrote her name on the chat so they can check it out. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So let me ask you something, dear friend. Let's move up the frequency bands. And chorus, you have a great sequenced keyboard or whatever, modular, or even like virtual instrument sequenced part that you want to cut in the mix. But it's hard because the mix is already very dense and there's a lot of instruments. So what would you use to, in some way, highlight that keyboard or whatever modular sequenced part that's doing, let's say, something like very continuous, but it's hard?
I'm doing a mix for a gentleman named Kid Bloom on Island Records right now, and
great
I've
artist.
got one of those in that. I've got one of those in the session. What I try to do is here again work with listening to everything, and I usually place that probably. I'll get my drums and vocals working at the same time pretty well, and then I'll put in the bass, then I'll go to vocal keyboards, and if I see a keyboard track that goes start to finish, I'll put that in first, and then I go, and so something like hi-hat parts and that sort of thing I do last, and so what I try to do is find a spot for it, not just sonically but rhythmically, and sometimes I might shift it ahead maybe a millisecond in the pre-chorus just to give a little bit of tension, and then I make it about a millisecond late in the chorus just to kind of give the chorus some flow, and then the verse I leave it alone. And
Dave, so don't want to cut you off, but these are the tricks that I need to highlight for people, because this is not a trick that someone from the newer generation can even, because it's not part of their background. This is a part of someone's background that worked with tape, that worked with synchronizers, that worked with MPCs like you, that knows, that in in the timing, there's everything, you know, and because you had to struggle with timing, you had to struggle with synchronizing, you know, things on tape, you had to, you know, struggle to make everything groove in the right way just by moving, you know, offsets and things. So people would never even think about something like that. So the same part, sometimes you just get it a little bit earlier, like 1 millisecond in the pre-chorus, just to create tension, and the same part is actually 1 millisecond late in the chorus to instead release this kind of tension, which is great.
Yeah, you know, people misunderstand how wonderful and how important computer generated program drums are, because if you've got a live drum track and a live vocal, we can't have a dead one. They move together, and so so you don't need to really create a movement because they are already moving together. But if you've got a steady drum beat, and you do this with the vocal, you can actually generate a performance because you've got something to compare it to. You've got this foundation. So if the band goes like this, you don't get the same separation as if it goes like this. So it's important to have elements that are real, emphasize and highlight the track by taking advantage of that bass. So you couldn't do that with an all live performance. It would kill what they tried to do. You know, they're incorporating that all together. And then the other thing that I think is important to mention is, this might be a surprise to some people, but you're Italian, and music is a part of the culture. It's just like food is. And I come from South Florida, so I grew up on a lot of Cuban rhythms and a lot of Cuban music. And my mom was a pretty gifted. My mom was a real gifted musician, so I got this feel for rhythm. And as a little kid, you don't know what you don't analyze it. It just makes you feel good, you know. And so in terms of actual precision, you're incredible. I'm not so good with hearing something that's out of time, but I'm real good with hearing something that doesn't feel good. And so I use that for my timing cues. But I think it's important to practice with a metronome to get your precision right, and then when you get that correct, then move on up to feel. And the benefits are great because go to a friend that doesn't know anything about music or mixing and play one of your mixes and ask him what he thinks about the hi-hat or she, and they'll go, "What's that?"
Yeah, exactly.
So they can't listen for something. They have to feel the entire mix or production. And if you'll go back to your childhood and listen to that first song that you thought sounded so amazing, you'll be scared, especially if you're a little older, because things sound way better nowadays than they did in the past.
I think that a lot of people are reconnecting back to their, you know, childhood, you know, songs right now, because with COVID, everyone is in their houses and they're not really listening to pop music, as we can see from data that we're getting from Spotify right now or from record companies. You know, people are reconnecting back to repertoire, you know, to big repertoire. So that's probably another good thing, because there's a lot of bad things about this COVID, but I love speaking about good things, you know, and good things about this COVID is people are focusing more to what really matter, you know, a little bit more, you know, in music too, you know.
Yeah. Like you, I like to keep up with our business because it's our business. We like it, you know. And a couple of labels, I won't name names, but their first quarter this year was really, really good, up 12%. So, and then streaming is definitely up like double digits in the last 2 or 3 months. So all that to say, people like you and I still have importance, and there's still going to be people wanting to use our skill sets. So those of you out there that think, oh, you know, it's horrible, it's this, it's that, there's a lot of opportunity right now. And I personally, if I was like 16, 17, 18, I'd be doing everything I can to when we come out of this, and we will come out of it eventually.
Yeah.
You're sitting at the forefront, being ready to catch fire, because
Mm.
there's certain things in life you can't do without. Every culture, no matter how advanced or how unadvanced they are, always has music as the center of their
Mhm.
culture. And culture is a spiritual thing. Culture is a fun thing. It can be anything you want it to be. And
Yeah.
so there's going to always be a place for us, you know.
Let's move on the frequency. First of all, before moving to vocals, which we can talk for 2 hours about vocals, but
I'll be quick.
what if in the chorus about those keyboards we're talking about, you want to use some kind of exciter, distortion, or stereo like processor? What would you go for? You know, for those keyboards, would you go for specific like Vitamin or from Waves or like a zone or do you have like your go-tos exciters, multi-band maybe, or
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think first I have to decide if I've got a pad going start to finish. That's one process. If I've got a guitar playing lead fills, that's another process. If I've got a sequencer that that's trying to emulate like a higher frequency, or a sawtooth wave,
Mhm.
like a string part, I'll treat that differently. And so the the producers uh, tend to leave slots for the different types of uh, different types of keyboards. So like for
Someone
a
gave me
pad,
that, and it's Dave.
yeah, we love technology. We gotta have technologically advanced coffee cups. I like that. But so let's say I've got a keyboard part that's not a pad type keyboard part. Well, I'll try to distinguish, like say a piano can and a guitar can generate uh, percussive elements, and it can generate harmonic elements. So I'll try to figure out how to use both. So like say I've got a reggae song and the guitar, dun, dun, dun. Well, that's a percussive part and a rhythmic part, and so I'll try to enhance the rhythm and make sure that it's fitting and feeling good. And then there's a myriad of things I do. Like say for a pad, I might use Blue Cat. What's the wrapper they make called?
What's the what? Sorry.
VST, the Blue
Oh,
Cat wrapper.
oh, patchwork.
Oh yeah, patchwork. I might go back and dig down deep and use Ozone 4. I really like that on pads. Tony Maserati's GTI plugin is for guitars, but I hear it a lot on a lot of EDM pads.
Hmm.
So I'll try to give the pad a space. I tend to make them wide. I tend to kind of get them out of the playground, which is the middle of the song,
Hmm.
and and then um, I like to have. It's not unusual for me to use 6 or 7 or more different reverbs, and so I'll pick a reverb that helps me place it front to rear in the mix. And if I want it farther back, I might make it a little darker and take off a
Hmm.
little bit of transients and put a little bit of a reverb that doesn't have early reflections, and that doesn't
Hmm.
and it gives you a sense of space. So I wouldn't use a
Hmm.
plate or a spring on something I wanted to move back, because they don't give you a sense of space. But I might use uh, Capital Chamber or one of the classic reverbs.
Yeah.
And then the more important elements, like say a fill uh, that can be a synth part, and there's a lot of those, and then a lot of times a new part will come in.
Hmm.
Like let's say a new part comes in the chorus. Well, I might raise the first 2 notes, the first bar of that, just to catch your ear, and then once your
Go
ear
back.
knows it's there, I'll put it back in the mix,
Yeah.
and 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 then I'll try to make sure that that the EQ works with the vocal, because a lot of times you'll randomly pick an EQ, like let's say the song's in a particular key and we know what frequency that key represents, and then you boost a frequency that alters the note value of the sound and gives you a note that's out of key. It can affect how you feel about the song. Now, sometimes with a drum, you might want to do that intentionally, put it slightly out of tune so you can hear it better in the mix.
Yeah.
But it's a great question. It's just so different every time.
Yeah.
Back when I had 10 plugins and could look behind me and see 20 pieces of gear, I was mostly just hall reverbs and sometimes send a delay through a reverb to a reverb. That way I got some tail movement, and then sometimes I didn't want to hear reverb in the holes, so I would gate the reverb and sidechain that gate with the kick and the snare, and so
that's
when the
great.
kick and the snare went away,
Dave, I want to ask you before moving to vocals, which is going to be incredible. I want to read a couple of questions before we lose all these questions that are going on the timeline. So, okay, first of all, the first one is John Nin from London is asking, big question, who are your top 3 favorite mixing engineers?
Pretty simple, I guess. Dave Pensado.
No, wait,
Frank
you should say Dave Pensado. And
oh, me and me. But I'm gonna answer the question in a wrong way. I like my favorite engineers are engineers that inspire me. I like to hear a mix and I go, oh wow, I get caught off guard by something. And then there's a group of engineers that are so gifted that I admire them for just their abilities and their consistency and their approach. See, different engineers have a different approach. Some engineers like to enhance the reference mix. Some engineers like to go a little further. Some engineers like to just listen to the song and put and try and like for me, I listen to the song and I try to listen and find out the vision of the producer, and then I try to finish the mix part of that vision. Sometimes I get a little off, and sometimes I go a little too far. But if I have 20 ideas to show you and you like 5 of them, I'm happy. I don't get mad when somebody doesn't like my ideas.
Yeah.
So I like Serban Ganea a lot. I love Jason Joshua. I love Manny. I love. I'm going past 3. I love Mick Wazowski. I love Chad Blake. My hero is Alan Myerson. Early in my career, I only listened to Alan Myerson's work, and you might not know him, but you should.
You should.
So, gosh, I know I'm leaving Fabian's work. Yeah, Marciullo, Italiano. And guys, there's so many right now. So many, and then there's a lot of younger engineers that are just killing it, I know I'm leaving some people out, so please forgive me because I'm on the spot. Yeah.
And then there's another question for you. Sorry, Dave. Don't want to cut you off.
Yeah. What now?
So, Dave, what was your involvement in Justified, Justin Timberlake's first album? This is Terrence.
I think I mixed a ballad on that record. It was nominated for a Grammy, and I'm still upset because Dixie Chicks won the Grammy because they won the Grammy, and I think we should have won it. That's my biggest memory from Justin. I've done odd things here and there, but nobody cared about them. But
okay,
that ballad was written by Brian McKnight, and I was kind of known as Brian McKnight's mixer at the time, and I like it. I really like it. I can't remember the title of it, but I'm a big fan of his. he's the guy that gave us Dick in a Box, I'm on a Boat. I mean, those Saturday Night Live songs are incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And he's way more gifted than you'll think. You'll never know. You'll never know how gifted he is.
That is a point that I always make with all the people that ask me about, in general, about big artists that I work with. You don't realize how these guys are talented, how much they're talented, you know, in general. And it's a bummer that sometimes an artist, it could be the most talented artist in the world, but obviously through his, you know, songwriting or through his like videos and appearances, it's impossible to transfer how talented he is, because maybe he's, you know, his like whole, you know, whatever, you know, target is different, you know, whatever. So, but some of these guys are so talented that is.
Yeah, my opinion is if somebody can write a song I like, they're talented.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not real. The way I was kind of put together with various pieces from different cultures and different opportunities is I tend to first look for what I like in a song and what's good about a song and what's good about a performance. And I rarely look or listen for the negative things.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's so much so when I mix, I have to take notes on things I think I can improve, because I fall in love with the song and I might
keep some mistakes in.
Forget about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also I write down, since I've started engineering, what I like about the song, because I'm capable of running it, and so I want to make sure when I get near the end, I'm looking at, well, I liked that before. Why did I change it? And you go back and put it. But yeah, I'd say, well, first of all, Bieber's from Nashville. I mean, Justin's from Nashville, so
Yeah.
so he got a good sampling of. That's what an incredibly musical town Nashville is. It's. I wish I had a house there. I'd love to spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
It's
Especially now.
Especially
now. So there's a third question for you here. What's your best recommendation for pursuing an internship in mixing?
To getting an internship?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like how to become an intern?
How do you intern, basically? How do you intern in a studio? What's the best way, you know, to intern in a studio?
Well, first of all, let's separate like a major studio like Larrabee. They tend to not keep, all major studios tend to not keep, well, most major studios, they tend to not keep resumes more than 2 weeks or 4 weeks, because they get so many, and then when they have an opportunity for a need, they'll get the last bunch, like maybe the last 2-3 weeks, and they'll look through those. So submit resumes often and early, and submit 1 page of resumes, and don't say that you worked at a filling station or a gas station for 2 years. Concise, and pretend like you're the person reading that resume, and you're going to trust the person from that resume with your life, because you're going to be in a position to really affect whether a studio can make money or not. For example, if you do a run for a famous artist and you come back with a screwed up order, and you didn't check that everything was there, you'll bring a bad light on the studio, because people that use studios, basically most studios have the same equipment, so they judge a studio by 2 things: the staff and the lounges. Mm-hmm. And so the staff, if you're not good, and a studio can't trust you, you have to get that into a resume to make sure they can. And then once you're there, be smart. Like watch the studio manager, and if she comes in through the front door, takes a left, and then takes a right down the hallway, make a note of what time she comes in the morning, and the path she takes, and then get some chewing gum and put it on the floor, mm-hmm. and bring a spatula from home, and when she comes by, you're scraping up the chewing gum, and find ways to be seen and be seen as useful. And rule number one, don't stay at the receptionist and crowd around with all the other guys. Be doing something, and don't stay in the kitchen washing dishes and all that stuff. That doesn't show anything to the person that can elevate your status. And and make sure that you do things that show that you're self-motivated. So for example, if there's been a kind of a dent in the wall and it's not that, and it's noticeable, figure out a way to get a little bit of stuff, patch it up, match the color when you're at Home Depot, and just repaint that area. Just stuff like that, and you'll get promoted to assistant probably within 2-3 months. And also too, you're gonna be the guy that goes and gets the food that the person that can move you up the food chain goes to when they're off work. And so maybe on a Sunday or Saturday, just drive by that restaurant and see if their car's in the parking lot, and then go in, say hello, how are you, good to see you, move on. Visibility is credibility. Visibility is credibility. So you want to figure out ways to be seen, and be seen doing productive things. And it doesn't hurt if you can read every manual ever made, and you know Pro Tools in and out, you know Ableton Live in and out, you know Logic in and out, but definitely Pro Tools. And definitely look at the clientele and look them up. And so when you see someone like say Louis Bell, you know his face, you know his work. You pass him in the hallway, you smile, you go, "Good morning, Louis," and then you just keep going. So and never look a client in the eye. And it's a process, and 100% of the process, Michaela, is just common sense.
Yeah, great. So thank you for it. Like, it's very expanded, you know, your reply, but it's great because a lot of people don't know basic stuff, you know, and especially how to work in a studio and how to be a studio intern. So let's move on. There's more questions, but I want to just talk about slightly talk, because we can talk about this literally in a next time even more extensively about vocals. So what should we start with regarding, because vocals, it's such a great, you know, argument and big argument. Let's start with, you get the session, your assistants are great into, you know, at preparing the session for you, you know, fixing all the possible problems that they have. Shout out to, you know, to Jackson and Nico and Jaime and everyone that, you know, is actually helping you preparing the session for you, basically. So then you get the session, and is actually the vocals the first thing you go for, or you just listen to, or you solo, or what you do?
Well, the first thing I do is I have a 30-minute drive to and from work. So going to work, I usually listen to demos, and I listen kind of for my job going to work. And the 30 minutes coming home at night, that's my time. So I might run Back in Black till my ears bleed with the windows down, and it's 90 degrees outside, and that smell of cut grass in the evening. I love, that's my time. And then after I listen to the demo for 3 or 4 times, I'll get some ideas. So say if it's a ballad, I'll probably start with the vocals first. I'll try not to get, in the initial stages, I try not to get everything perfect. I just try to get it close enough to where I can create a quick rough mix for myself that I can use, you know, and then take everything up together. So a ballad, I would literally start with a vocal, and I'd try to get it about 85% sonically and about 50% effects wise. And then I would go to like say if it's if there's a pad or a live piano or something like that, then I'd work those up. And in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, this piano is so important. It's got to be an event. In my mind, I think an event. So So I go back to all the live concerts I played on and the live concerts I've attended. And I remember, I try to remember what was it that caught my attention about the piano, and what was it that the audience felt when that piano came in. So I try to make the piano an event, or the guitar an event, and then everything else is more supporting cast. And so in movies you've got character actors, and so I treat them like a audible version of a character actor. I try to give them a unique space and a reason to exist, but I give them their moment. And so if it's a hip hop song, I start with the drums. Then if there's an 808, I get it kind of close, but the drums I try to get real close, kick a snare, and then I determine whether I want to keep all my drums in one auxiliary track or one group track, or either whether I separate the kick. And sometimes I have,
I lost you.
so that's usually how I do it.
So what about vocals? So
every song. Well, the vocals, I do it. I like on a hip hop song, I'll do those last. On a pop song, I'll get them pretty good. And but I tend to like to start with the rhythmic elements first, like drums and bass and main keyboard parts. And then, but if you do that and go too far, you don't leave a slot for the vocals. So sometimes I'll just solo all the drums and the vocal, and I'll listen to the track with just that. And if I feel something, then I move on. If I don't feel something, I try to figure out why aren't the drums and the vocals moving together? Why are they not amplifying each other? And then towards the end of the mix, I'll listen to the vocals and all the music, and so I might find a hole to raise a keyboard part, or I might find a hole where I can, I never want to distract the listener's attention from the vocal. I learned that from a guy named Dwayne Allman back in the day with the Allman Brothers. There was a song called Statesboro Blues, and I asked him, I said, Dwayne, how did you come up with those slide fills in that song? He said, well, when Greg's singing, he's such a great singer, and the track is so good. I just wanted to take the listener's ear when Greg had a hole that where it wasn't singing. I want to take the listener's ear back to the music and the track and the drums, and then before Greg comes in, I want to take the listener's ear back to Greg. And it's probably the most beautiful example of doing that. So I try to do that same thing in the mix process. If I've got a singer going da 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 da, you might hear da 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 da, something like that. So I might raise those three notes, and so I'm listening and making sure that all the ingredients work together. Like a nice pasta sauce.
So obviously, when you start treating vocals, the first thing you're gonna probably notice if the waveform of the vocals, like you said before, for the bass is even, or if it's too, like, let's say, varied, you start probably with a clip gain before even doing any kind of treatment of compression or EQ. True?
Yeah. One of the things, Michaela, how many times have you sampled a drum that you thought was great? I just ripped off the kick drum from DaBaby, and one of my favorite kick drums. I think the song is Box, and then I put it in a mix I was working on, thinking it'd be great, and it didn't sound good. And so the same thing happens when you're mixing in solo. You'll get something to sound great, but then you put it in the track, and the snares are notorious for that. And so now you got to do all this massaging. So as you're going, make sure that everybody's playing nice to each other. Don't wait till you're 80% done with the mix to get your snare sound. Let it all grow organically together,
Yeah.
and that's what music is.
100%.
Music is and by the way, I like music that has more than one creative person involved with it. Like the first Prince record was one of the greatest records ever made, but it had a flatness because it was all Prince, and then his career really took off when he started bringing in other creative people to work with. And I get a little bit of that from my assistants. I always try to work with creative assistants, and I rely on them a lot for opinions and keeping me straight, because I can go left in a heartbeat. I love living on the edge of the cliff.
Like your preset on Brower's Motion, living on the edge.
Yeah.
So listen to this super fast Q&A about vocals. Your this last month favorite 3 compressors on vocals.
What a great question. The tried and true 1176 UAD Blue Stripe, CL1B Mark II by Soft Tube and UAD, and the new Kush Audio AR1.
Oh, that's a good one, and I always forget to buy it. Oh, so that's a good reason to buy one. Great. So
yeah, and when you get at the little knob in the lower left-hand corner, that's where the money is.
We talked about that, now that I remember, because we were comparing that to the hardware. Remember, to the hardware one.
Yeah.
So 3 go-to EQs of the last month on vocals.
I might do 4.
Okay.
I love the Green Acoustica, Green 3 Acoustica. I love the 2055 Acoustica. I love the Cambridge EQ by UAD, and I love
the super old one, the original.
Yeah, done by Oxford. And I'll do 5, and then there's this plugin that's kind of brown and kind of gold trim on it. I forget what it's called, Pensoni or Penobody or anyway.
Pensando. I think Pensando.
I like that. Like if we were building a cake, my EQ would be the icing and the sprinkles on the cake. You know,
I still remember. I was finishing a mix, asking you an opinion on the mix, and Pensado EQ was actually out since not a lot, like literally 15 days. And you told me, this is pretty good. Just put my EQ on the mix. I said, oh, come on. Is he really bragging about his EQ on the mix? And then you told me, do this, and this. Wait, they're doing something on my back here. There's noise. Do this and this and this. And it was like literally small things, like a dB and a half or a dB on 200. Can I tell you, I saved that preset as Pensado like fixer or something. And I used that preset. After that preset on a lot of mixes, because it seems really to work well. And you seem to have developed some kind of, almost common problems on all the mixes, because you taught me that, there's specific ranges in the frequencies that they tend to be overloaded some way, especially in digital, once you layer more and more parts, and it's always 10K, it can be 6K, and I never even thought about it. But that Pensado EQ that preset really fixed it. So shout out.
I'm real proud of the 2 mic pre's we came up with. Can I do something else?
Yeah.
A lot of times I EQ with things that aren't EQs. Like I use Thermionic Culture Vulture a lot on vocals, just about every vocal, but I use it as an EQ.
Yeah.
Even though it's a saturator. Satin by Yuhi, I use that for EQ, even though it's not an EQ. There's so many: Clariphonic, Dopamine, Man, can I have 30 seconds real quick?
Yeah.
I've been thinking more and more about the process of an equalizer, and you can you can you can equalize things without an equalizer. So what I'll do sometimes is, if, like, say I want to enhance the 1K to 2K in my vocal to make sure it's cutting over above all the noise, rather than
Yeah.
reaching for an EQ, I will either make a copy of that vocal, or I will get an auxiliary track and send to that, and that track. What I'll do is I'll have a high and low pass filter, and I'll only let the 1K to 2K come through and hear it, and then I'll put like RVox or some kind of saturation plug-in, like maybe Vitamin,
Hmm.
or um, um, something that has color and attitude. It can even be Sansamp.
Hmm.
And then I'll cut a little bit of that 1 to 2K out of
Hmm.
the original vocal, and then I'll shove in and substitute the parallel vocal, that where it only had those frequencies.
Hmm.
And so those frequencies are compressed, so they're so important. They stay at a different in your face level than the entire vocal. You see what I'm saying? And so
Yeah,
you can
totally.
control that for you can control that think of the Fletcher Munson curve. You can control that area where we listen that way much better than with just an EQ. An EQ just moves it up, but if it's got movement and just stays in your face.
Yeah.
Did I explain it to
Yeah,
where you can
100%.
understand it?
And I also remember, I mean, regarding like parallel on vocals, one time you showed me how you were using Nectar 3 for that. And it was actually really mind-boggling to me,
Yeah.
because I always use Nectar 3, especially with those, AI, detection, or,
Uh,
algorithm inside, to on single main vocals. Instead, you showed me how to process the whole vocals, with those aggressive, maybe even algorithm, and then keep that as a parallel. And
yeah.
it really works. Thanks to you, by the
Yeah.
way. So guys,
Yeah.
try
Yeah. But
that. Yeah.
you parallel it back in. That's, yeah.
And it's great, because typically what that plugin does, and what it's trying to achieve, is to give you, especially if you use it on pop and aggressive, like the kind of, in your face, super compressed, typical pop mixed vocal. But sometimes you don't want to have that, on the whole
Yeah.
aux, So
Yeah.
keeping that as a parallel gives you a little bit of that kind of in your face sound
Yeah.
without,
Yeah.
compromising the whole, vocal mix.
And with a vocal, you might want to low pass and high pass it at the same time.
Yeah.
That return.
It's great, Dave. I start to see the countdown coming on my Instagram, telling me that they're gonna cut us off if we don't stop. It's always a pleasure,
Okay.
and I really love like doing super fast Q&A with you, because it's just more knowledge and more power to us.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm just a screw up that got lucky, and I was just too stubborn to give up. So, in our world, time and experience is the best tool you can have. If you like, it took you 20 years to get good, and it took me 20 years to get good, and the fun of it was getting good along the way.
Hey, Jordan, there's Jordan
It's
writing us, our intern, Jordan. Hey,
oh, Jordan,
you know what I want to do?
it's.
You know what I want to do,
Mhm.
Dave? I wanna, if I know how to do it, I will try to learn a little bit more of Final Cut. I want to cut some of this that you said today and make it almost like you do, with your Pensado show, much more in a empirical way, that I'm not that good, but like literally about EQ, about compressors. It's great if I can cut 50 seconds, because people, they don't have time sometimes to listen for 1 hour of crazy, you know. So yeah.
There's a there's an app that I love for that. That's pretty good. 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds. It's called Filmic Pro.
Oh, I have it. I
FILMI
have it.
Pro.
I'll try that for
It's
sure. It's 10 We
it's
have 10
really good.
seconds. I want to just say hello and thank you and hope to talk to you like in a couple of weeks, like we do like this bi-monthly. Bye.